Hi, and welcome to the Grace Cycle Show. I'm your host, Karen Dittman, and my heart for this show is to help you stop striving and struggling in life and instead find a different way to grow closer to God through His grace. You don't have to try harder. You can try different. And I'm aware that life sometimes feels like a crazy hamster wheel. We're spinning on it and we wish we could just stop it and get off and get a break, but it doesn't stop. That's why I created my quiz, How Fast is Your Hamster Wheel Spinning? If you take this quiz, it only takes about 50 seconds. It will help you see what's spinning your hamster wheel, how that's impacting you, and what you might be able to do to help slow it down a little bit. You can find it at hamster.onefit-wellness.com, and I'll put the link for that in the show notes here for you today. Today, I want to wrap up season 2 of the podcast with some thoughts around the idea of shalom. When I wrote my book, Thriving in Grace, Unleashing Wellness from a Biblical Perspective, actually co-wrote it with my husband, we really wanted to emphasize that growing in wellness and growing in our lives is about growing into shalom. This is a beautiful Hebrew word that doesn't just mean peace, which is the way it's often translated, peace or perfect peace, but it includes peace. It includes health and well-being. It includes prosperity and success in life. It includes friendliness and also deliverance from troubles. This kind of peace, I like to wrap up with the word wholeness, as in a life that is whole and being restored and redeemed by God. But at the same time, we don't get there easily. I find very often in life that there are seasons that I have to walk through, and I'm sure that you have had to walk through also, that are hard, that are impossible. The seasons where we need God's grace to flow over us, to fill us, to empower us, to do for us the things that we cannot do. We need God and His grace to step in. And when we walk through, and when we don't say, I can't do this, and turn back from it, which is often the temptation to say, God, I can't, and I'll turn my back on it. But when we turn and face towards the troubles, and we ask God for His grace and hand in hand walk through them, then from the depths of our pain and distress and despair, God restores. God redeems those troubles. And then we begin to experience more shalom, peace, wholeness. This is really important because I'm aware of how easy it is to say, I'm not going there through the hard times, but there is beauty that rises out of it. God promises beauty from the ashes. I live in Colorado, and there are years when we have many fires in the mountains, or even there might be fires in other states west of us. And it is ugly, and it is difficult, and it is very distressing to watch that destruction. And at the same time, we see the most beautiful sunsets when these fires are going and there's ash in the air. Now, I'm not saying that makes it all worth it, but it's an example of how God brings beauty out of destruction. And then once the fire has subsided, there is new growth. There is an opportunity for new trees, new plants to grow where the old growth is gone. Again, living in Colorado, we have many forests that have been decimated in the last 10, 20 years from a pine bark beetle. So there are many dead pine trees and forests full of these dead pine trees that need to be taken down so that new growth can come. And this is what God can do in our lives. There are things within us that God knows do not align with what He says is good. And being human, We like to hold on to those things. I have done this so many times in my life, and God has called me to open my hands, let go, walk away, practice bara, empty myself of the things that are not serving me and not helping me to live in His love and grace. From that place, when I empty myself and allow Him to come in and do His work, then I begin to experience the wholeness, the restoration, the shalom. As we're moving into the Christmas season and celebrating Jesus entering the world as a baby, as a human newborn infant, dependent, weak, in need of the grace of other humans to care for Him. I'm very aware of how Philippians tells us He emptied Himself of His claim to being in the place of God. And He walked this human life like we did. And He experienced the temptations and the suffering and the pain that we do day by day. He died on a cross, a most brutal, ugly, awful death. And from that place, He rose, not just rose out of the grave, but was elevated to the highest place of authority in the heavenlies. This is such an amazing thing for us to remember. This is where shalom comes from. Because we need to remember that when we walk into these places of pain and difficulty, we're not walking it alone. Jesus knows. He gets it. He can relate. So I encourage you, friend, if you are walking through a difficult season, ask God to pour His grace on you. I hope that you've had a chance to listen to at least a few of the episodes earlier in this season of women just sharing their stories of how in some of their darkest moments, God met them by His grace. And God poured out His favor on them and on their lives, empowering them and giving them what they needed to walk through the things that they could not humanly deal with. But He could, and He works through His grace. Please be encouraged by these stories. Let me know by dropping a comment here, or you can email me, thriving@onefit.us. I would love to hear if there is a story from this season that really touched your heart, that really impacted you. So here's where we're going. I'm going to be taking another break for a few weeks. I am starting to line up some guests for season 3. Season 3 is going to be a little bit different. It's going to focus specifically on wholeness, on wellness, what that practically looks like in our lives. I have some guests who can offer us insights into what physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, relational, vocational, and even financial wellness look like practically. And they all have their own stories of God's grace in their lives. I think you're going to continue to be encouraged by their stories. And I think you're going to find some really good practical things. If there is an area in your life that you're struggling with, I hope you'll find some help for moving forward, for getting unstuck, and for finding God's grace for you in the middle of it all. So that is it for today, and that is it for this season 2 of the Grace Cycle Show. Thank you so much for joining me, and we will be back in a few weeks. So don't forget about the quiz, How Fast Is Your Hamster Wheel Spinning, which you can find at hamster.onefit-wellness.com. If you subscribe to the show, then you will be notified as soon as season 3 opens, and we have some new weekly guests for that season. Would you also take a moment to rate or review the show, either on Apple Podcasts or on YouTube or on Spotify, because that helps more people to find out about it. So until next season, remember, get curious, stay connected, and live in grace.